When I think back on all the fears when I was pregnant, all of them dismissed except for one. The only test the state mandated was genetic. Looking for that extra chromosome.
Hello and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Stephen Sachs.
And I'm Lori Sachs. And today we have the honor of speaking with Craig Thomas, the co-creator of How I Met Your Mother. And how we met Craig is through our good friends Jenna Fischer and Angela Kinsey, who introduced us after reading his new book, That's Not How It Happened.
Craig has a podcast that he's collaborated with the Office Ladies, a rewatch podcast about How I Met Your Mother called How We Made Your Mother, that he co-hosts with Josh Radnor.
So keep an ear out for that. But I had the opportunity to read Craig's book, which comes out on November 4th. And I'm just so happy to have a fiction narrative that I could relate to in all the best ways. Well, we can't say it any better than Craig did. So in his own words, here's Craig Thomas.
Hey guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. More morning for you guys than me. I appreciate you guys making this happen on the early side for me. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, we like getting up in the morning, so it was good.
You look more awake than me, and it's 10:30 here, so that's that I do believe that immediately. Does this sound okay? I'm using my little podcast setup. We do a little How I Met Your Mother rewatch podcast, Josh Radnor and I. And
it sounds wonderful. It sounds great.
Okay, good.
The format of the show kind of works where it almost feels like I believe, or we've gotten some feedback about that. It's kind of like an old like call-in show. So it works. It works for the audience. That,
by the way, those are very comforting. Those old and they still exist too. I really like the show, you guys. I'm really glad that what a weird series of things that led me to now know you guys, which is we got into business with our podcast, with Jenna and Angela's podcast, and Jenna read my book and she was like, "You've got to talk to these guys. You've got to." And now I've gotten to listen to your podcast a few times. It's so smart. It's so informative. It's just the right amount of activist, but also comforting.
Oh,
does that make sense? It's it's reassuring, but also you have a right to this. You should fight for this. And I don't know. I'm not saying this very well, but your guys' tone, that's a hard target to hit of kind of comforting and activating in some way. So you guys, it's very cool what you guys are doing.
Sometimes we think maybe a little differently than what we've come across. So maybe we're more...
The narrative that was fed to us.
Yeah. So our response to it, we don't want it to be where it's all fight, right? I mean, we use that word all the time. We talk about it and we go, wow. Every time we talk about it, we go, why do we have to use that word? But part of this journey is an active...
There's no question. We've been in that position. I was listening to your episode about IEPs the other day, and so many things resonate, I mean, anyway, we should do that. We can talk about this on the record.
No, this is good. This is all, this is kind of how we do it, is it's just
and then we say
organic.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Craig.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me, you guys. I am a fan. I'm so glad that I found your guys' podcast. I'm really enjoying listening to it. And I thank Jenna Fischer for hooking us up and putting you guys on my radar. And I'm so happy to know you guys now.
Yes, it was so much kismet because Angela and Jenna they're just dear friends, and she nailed it when she said, "I think you're going to like this book because I know how important it is for people to hear their story or for their story to be told," and I'll tell you that I haven't had, Liam's 15, I haven't had very much book reading time in the last 15 years.
I very much believe my son's 18 and I've had far less than I planned on. That's for sure.
And I really enjoyed reading your book. I enjoyed it for so many reasons. And I have so many questions. I feel the same as you said. I have so many questions, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. We could start by having you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Craig Thomas. I co-created the show How I Met Your Mother, and ran that for 9 years. I lived in LA that whole time with my wife, Rebecca. This is how I know Jenna Fischer, because we Josh Radnor from How I Met Your Mother and I are doing a little How I Met Your Mother rewatch podcast, and we got into business with the Office ladies, who are the best. First of all, they seem like the best people ever. I'm just getting to know them. And we're in business with them. In season 2, we joined their Office Ladies network as they take over the world with the Rewatch podcast forum. They've perfected it, so we're lucky to be with them. And they're the ones. And I sent them my book, and they read my book, which is to reduce it to a really quick log line is. It's a comedy about special needs parenthood, right? I mean, it just is. I'm trying to take this journey and make it funny. You don't see that a ton, right? We see all kinds of we see a bunch of other things. We see things that are very inspiring, or things that are very dark, or things that are very practical. And I was like, why can't we be funny about this topic? But let me back now. I'm going to go flashback. I'm going to tell this whole interview is going to be done like How I Met Your Mother. I'm just going to flash back and forward and jump
That's
over
perfect.
the timeline. Well, between year 2 and 3 of How I Met Your Mother, my son was born, and it changed my life. He was born with a rare genetic syndrome called Jacobsen Syndrome. It has a bunch of overlaps to Down syndrome. It's not quite the same. This is a genetic deletion. He's missing a piece of one of his 11th chromosomes. And so that had immediate medical ramifications, and then lifelong, intellectual disability, learning stuff, and lifelong health implications too. So he was born like weighing 3.5 pounds, which we did not know. We thought he'd be small. My wife's small, but we didn't know anything in utero. We did not know what new path we were being sent down in life. So he's born. No one knows why he's quite so small. No one knows why he's not kind of like saturating oxygen at the proper level. And it turns out he has multiple heart defects that need an immediate emergency surgery. But it's taken like 8 days to find those problems. And he hung out. And that was the first time I realized this guy wants to be at the party, my son Elliott, and that is who he is. He's 18 years old now. He's at the party. He is a drummer. He loves music. His whole life is music. He really wanted to be here. But when he was first born, it was really 50-50 with this multiple heart defect, open heart surgery, with the same surgeon who actually did a heart surgery on Jimmy Kimmel's son, and also did a heart surgery on Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I always say the same doctor who touched Elliott's heart touched the Terminator's heart, which there's something kind of cool about that. And it kind of speaks to how tough Elliott is. And I assume Jimmy Kimmel's son as well. So between year 2 and 3, without knowing this was going to happen at all, my wife and I became special needs parents. And we started on this journey of what you guys talk about on Your Wonderful podcast here, just fighting for the best for him and learning how to support him. And he's our first kid. We've since had a daughter. There's a 9-year age gap because, in part, man, it was really a lot raising Elliott, and it took 9 years to even consider like adding on to our family. Only after we moved back to New York after How I Met Your Mother ended, where like all our family is and all the sort of built-in grandparent support that we did not have in LA. And yeah, it's just been this huge part of my life, this 18-year part of my life that I never figured out how to write about on How I Met Your Mother. And I tried a few times since How I Met Your Mother ended to get TV projects or film projects going about this. And shocker, it's fairly hard to get studios to give you millions of dollars to make content that they deem as niche for a small audience, the disability community. And you just throw up your hands and you go, taken aggregately, the disability community is America's largest minority, and they want stories told about their lives. And it's just a really hard sell to make. You can get really close. You can get them to sort of develop a project because they feel noble that they're doing something about this. And then all of us at the last minute, these things somehow slip away. So that was when I decided I'm writing this as a novel. I'm writing this as words on a page. I'm going to write a story inspired by Elliott. I'm going to make it funny because there's an audience for funny in the disability community, and there's an audience for funny everywhere. And I'm going to also make it very real and try to put my heart and soul into it. I'm going to dedicate it to my son. And it's really turned into my favorite thing I've ever written, except for How I Met Your Mother. But this one is the most personal to me that I've ever written. So yeah, I'm excited. It was 18 years in the making, this book, that's for sure.
Stephen and I always talk about because when Liam was born, he was the same thing. He wanted to be at the party. He was born at 30 weeks. So he was, and he spent 75 days in the NICU, and we didn't have a diagnosis when he was born.
That is a long time in the NICU. We were there 6 weeks, and that's a long, you start to feel like you live. It's Groundhog Day.
We did live there.
Yeah. We knew we had a special.
The nurses were ready for us to get
drink.
out. I think they were like, you don't have to be here at my job all the time.
All the time. Yeah, that was us too, by the way.
And it's because you said, and I'm curious to ask you, because when Liam was born so early, at first there was just like, Mom, don't worry, he's strong. And it was this really great narrative that they were giving me of, hope and everything. And then we got that diagnosis, and everything turned. The way we were treated, the way everything just like drained out of the room. And we talk about that, like, for parents, the impact that has, that like all of a sudden they're actively taking hope away from you. And
oh yeah.
And then you see, like, you saw your son, and he wants to be there, right? He's fighting so hard. And it's like, how can you be so hopeless when, look at that, like your prejudgments of the situation are not really grounded in reality and in what this moment is. And I feel like Funny is really, because we've created 2 little web series because we had to at some point, because it's just like, oh gosh, I
like
can't.
A little release valve or something.
It was just like, I can't. And the only thing you can do is laugh. And laughter is the best, because it doesn't, this journey is challenging. And this journey, for all the reasons that you said, the fears that come for any child, if you have if your kid, the first ear infection your baby gets, ask any parent, will be like, oh my,
it's terrifying. Yeah.
your shots at 6 months. Nobody wants to go in there with their baby and give them a shot. So that, like, I really work hard for parents to diffuse that isolation that comes from medical and the way we're spoken to, in a way that's like what you're experiencing now. It is unique in many ways, but it's not
another universe.
Yeah.
And it's not to be isolated. And Stephen and I really have. That's like the bane of our conversation. I just want parents to understand, it's like, this journey is, most of the challenges come from outside those doors. They don't, this life, like, we laugh so much, like we have so much fun. Like, I don't know how many other parents stepped out on Halloween last night and almost cried because they looked at how beautiful their family was, and the joy and I looked at the way my kids love each other, and just like, there's a lot of tokenization that goes with disabilities, but Liam has.
There is.
What I realized about Liam, that people try to put it with other stories that are noble and inspiring and niche, he's just present.
Yeah.
And he just loves with no agenda. And
it's the same with my son. He's the most loving source of light in the universe. And it's so true, Lori, like, when your child is born, and am I hearing you correctly that you only got a diagnosis after your son was
10
born?
days.
10 days.
10 days. That's so funny. I think we got ours like right then, because we were popping champagne that the heart surgery went well. The heart surgery that was, well, we don't know why he has these heart defects. Then the genetics test came back, right? And that takes a long time. That's like a full week or it was 18 years ago. And they say, the geneticist would like to speak with you now. You're sitting there. I mean, the way I remember it in my mind is we're like popping champagne and there's confetti and joy. Of course, this is all a cartoon, because he survived this 50-50 heart surgery. And then it's like, the geneticist wants to see you. And we're in the NICU, in the NICU with all the other, isolates, all the other babies that are in the plastic boxes with lots of tubes. And we say, okay, tell the geneticist to come. She can talk to us right here. And they go, she's booked a private room to speak with you. And We go,
Gosh.
well, that doesn't sound good. And then you go out in the hallway in the hospital and you walk down what now looks like the longest, darkest hallway. Now my mind is adding shadows. There's ominous music coming in. We walk down that long hallway to the geneticist and to the private room, the private consultation room that you've walked by this door. It's like an unmarked door. You're like, what's this door? You open the door, no windows, a couch, a chair, a table, and the only thing on the table is a box of Kleenex. And you go, this is not going to be good. This is not the good news room. This is the bad news room. And that is the room in which we were given our genetic diagnosis by a geneticist who had no bedside manner, which I think you guys are both knowing exactly what I mean. So she starts telling us, imagine this, and you can imagine this with DS. Again, there are a lot of overlaps between Jacobsen syndrome and Down syndrome. I made it Down syndrome in the book, in part to have a little bit of distance, so it wasn't me feeling like I was exactly writing my family, just so I would be a little freer. Also, like my son has gone to this amazing inclusion school in New York, founded by 3 moms of kids with Down syndrome, to create an inclusion school that brings in all kinds of kids with all kinds of disabilities. But the sort of heart, the beating heart of that school is moms with Down syndrome, creating a school just for their kids that became this amazing mission for everybody, which is, so that's part of why I made it Down syndrome in the book. But there's so many overlaps, including the heart defects, including the intellectual disability, including all the different health challenges. Now imagine, and maybe this happened to you guys too, the geneticist is sitting there with a piece of paper and she just reads us every worst symptom of Jacobsen syndrome that it can possibly be. Every, like, just this long list. Like when you're a hypochondriac and you WebMD something and you're like, I have that, it's like the bleakest the version. And then we say to her, like, well, have you seen, and she also used the R word. In 2007, she said, your son will be what you would think of as mentally R, And it sounds like I'm telling a story that is set in 1981 or something, but she sort of used that word, and it wasn't even a great word then. It's a worse word to me now. I think there's enough awareness that we're not really using that word anymore. And this is a geneticist, and she said, we said to her, have you ever seen somebody with Jacobsen syndrome? It's pretty rare. And she goes, no. And we say, wait, and we sort of look at her piece of paper and it's just like a Google printout of symptoms or a WebMD. It's like, it's no more than I could have gotten myself. And she just gave us the bleakest thing. And then you sort of walk out of that room with the worst version in your head of everything that could go wrong medically and developmentally with your child. And then what proceeds to happen is years pass and you actually meet your child and you learn who your child is and you learn that their human complexity and beauty and nuance and their personality, and in my son's case, is musicality. Like, there are so many surprises, wonderful ones that you can't imagine in that moment when you're there in the bad newsroom or whatever your version of the bad newsroom is. And I don't know what the fix is for that. I don't know if just, some doctors have more of a bedside manner than others, but I'll tell you what it was for us. It was getting online and finding the Facebook group for Jacobsen syndrome 11q, and getting online and finding the one person in America, the one doctor in America researching and who's the specialist in Jacobsen syndrome. Lucky for us, he's in San Diego. He's at Rady's Children's Hospital in San Diego. We were in LA when our son was born. So we just got in the car and drove to him. And he spent 3 hours with us telling us the varied and wide spectrum of human beings that have Jacobsen syndrome rather than the flat printout. And that was the beginning of the journey for us of realizing this is not hopeless. This is going to be hard, but it's not hopeless. In fact, it might be, I look back on it as one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because now I got to meet Elliott. And it's made me a better guy. It's made me a way better person than I ever would have been. I certainly wouldn't have written this book.
Well, the blaring obvious inequality is there when you talk about like this laid out Wikipedia page printed or whatever. Because imagine any typical child being born, or every child being born, and then whatever a doctor feels is the right printout to just read out all the negative things that could happen. If my parents were told that I could become suicidal, a drug addict, car accident. Like,
right.
This is life. Like, that shows how the box is formed from the origin of these human lives. And
yes,
and yeah, I'm not sure how to break that. It reminds me of like when you were talking about your thought of making this maybe some type of film media or television media first, this idea, I think of like the dichotomy of media changing society or society influencing media. Like, why was it Life Goes On was so long ago with...
I know. Yeah.
What was it then? Was it, where are we now as a society that this isn't something that's being done? But I don't.
If anything, we're headed in the opposite direction when it comes to how we talk about disability in America right now and what's happening. And we don't need to get political, but I don't know. I don't know. The only thing I feel I can do, or like what can my little talents or skill set do? Just trying to humanize the issue, right? Even right away, we were just talking about how our children are reduced at first to to a list of symptoms, right? And then over the years, you also see how sometimes the school district and your child can be so easily reduced to a problem that has to be solved rather than to a human being. And I think when you can explain to people, whether it's through writing or just through advocacy, through your podcast that you guys do here, the human beings that are behind these words, that are behind these symptoms, that are behind these preconceptions that society has, it's so powerful. It's even, Lori, I think you alluded to it too. You said we need to feel the connective tissue to every parent. We need to feel the connection, like any parent that their kid gets that first ear infection. They know in some way what it's like for your kid to be in the NICU. It's not the same. And I remember feeling like no one understands me. I was so lonely. There were all these other people becoming new parents around me, and none of them had these medically complicated kids like my son. But I have a 9-year-old daughter who is, doesn't have a disability. She's neurotypical. I worry all the time about her and her health and her life. And it's not that different. And maybe it's on our side too. It's like I've learned so much about trying to be less lonely, right? Not judging other parents. I've had it harder than them and they're still complaining, so they don't get me and I won't be friends with them. It's all hard. There's this great quote about parenthood that's like, parenthood is to have your heart forever walk around outside your body. And that's every parent that had any kid ever, right? And we all want a place in the world for our kids. We all want what's best for our kids. And I just think there is a deeper connection there. And the feeling marginalized piece is just because people think we're somehow different, or maybe we think parents that aren't like us are different. And there's more overlap, isn't there? It's more complicated. It's always more complicated life than it seems.
Well, I think that just this journey has also made me very sensitive to that. And I do believe that is the gift. I want to, like, when you talk about stories, here's the thing. Well, first of all, we do have an episode where we sat down with a doctor from Children's Hospital and went down that list that we're given. And she gave us not only the percentages, that's a hard word.
No, you had it the first time. You corrected it having said it correctly. So now you've said it correctly twice.
But for children with Down syndrome, and then you're neurotypical. And the truth is, it's not that increased. Like, it's not so blaring as they would have us believe. And one thing I want to talk about your book, because I love your book, but the thing I try to remind people is, at the beginning of time, like, everybody was included and everybody had a value. Everybody had a place. Family was family. And then the Industrial Revolution came along, and I do bring it back to this, and I bring it back to it often, because that's when our narrative started to be propagated by something else. And unfortunately, as history evolved and we started to see, like, we saw the institutions, we saw where that went. That had nothing to do with this journey. It was a story, and I try to remind people, like, know where your story is coming from and know whose story you're telling. Are you telling someone from our community? Like, I always wondered, like, why did they call my son an angel? And then I came across this book that was it Dale Evans? Was it? It was
it was. Yeah, Dale Evans is married to
the cowboy from
it was Roy Rogers.
Yes,
Roy
Dale
Rogers.
and whatever they said really had a lot of influence, and the stories they told. And they had a child with Down syndrome.
I did not know that.
In the time when these children were actively being pulled away. And his
Yeah.
wife, like very many brave mothers did back then, said, no, and this is like a huge Hollywood influence, like a society influence, and they try to take her child away. They told her child wasn't, used all the terminology from back then, and she said, "I'm raising my child for as long as I have it," and she wrote a book, and it was called Angel. Their child effectively died because at that point they weren't doing heart surgeries on babies with Down syndrome, but that's where that statistic came from. The statistic of children dying at an early age didn't come from the fact that the mortality rate was so high just because. It was because the outside medical community saw this life as not having a value and refused to give it. Like that's actually against that pledge they take.
Absolutely. I mean, and it all was, what you're talking about was shockingly not that long ago. Do you know what I mean? Like in the grand scale of time, like it is really shameful how not long ago many kids with disabilities were basically just given up on, institutionalized or they let them die. And it's not the medieval times, it's like,
no, we have people alive now that experience that.
Yeah.
That
well,
stuff.
we are actively fighting for our child's education. And in the 5th grade, he was denied his right to he was denied his right to an education. Like they said, like they literally, it was during COVID, and they were like, we don't have a.
Yeah, that happened a lot in COVID. Yeah, I've heard this story.
Who else could that happen to?
No one would stand up for that.
Who else could that happen to?
No one would stand for that.
No, absolutely not. You could not.
I know.
You could not. And so and that's really the bane of, we wanted to, at least like in football terms, just kind of like block that, like whatever was coming at parents, to be able to go, no, that's not a truth. That's not a truism. And that's not the value, but we can make a choice if we're going to consume that, or if we're going to say no, and we can say no. And that's something that I advocate for parents to like see the person in front of them. And also like, sometimes fighting can get really exhausting. So at some point you just know that, like, even when it comes to school, it's like eventually everybody graduates no matter what. And it's just like, so what kind of toll and what do you preserve in your heart? And the reason why I love your book is, we don't get stories. We get movies that, I don't know if you've ever seen Coming Down the Mountain. That's a nice movie. That's a real movie.
I'll check it out. I haven't seen that.
That's a really good one. But besides that, like, and there are some movies that people love that I'm like, let the man put pants on at the same time that the neurotypical man puts pants on, because and don't propagate stereotypes of superhuman strength. Don't do that. But other people will be like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, and I'm like, I'm the worst person to speak to, because I'm like, no, you could have actually, when they were reading the prompter, you could have front loaded that, had a speech pathologist help him with the hard words, and then maybe understand who that person is, because you really don't understand, and you're pushing a narrative. And I understand the evolution of humanity. I understand that things change slow, but I don't like it, because I don't think people like, because it impacts so many profoundly wonderful humans, right? Like so many.
Yeah.
And I think that I love your story because, one, it is funny, and the way it's told, and you get, because we're used to serious stuff. Like everything is serious.
Yeah. It's all serious, or it's inspiring. It's either dark or it's inspiring. And there's a lot of absurdity in my book, because my book is really about the whole family. My book, it switches around these 4 perspectives of the mom, the dad, a young adult who has Down syndrome, and his younger sister who's like 17, 18 years old. And have you guys ever noticed how when families like us, like parents like us, are all together and we talk about what adulthood will be like for our kids, everyone uses the term the cliff. It's in my book too, the cliff. Well, when schooling ends, when we get up to that point where all of a sudden we're kind of off map, we're off the sort of supports and services and education, like getting into the 20s, everyone just calls it the cliff. And it's such a scary term. It speaks to how scared we all are of what does an adult life look like with a disability in America and the world. And I thought, I want to write a comedy about the cliff. And one of the conceits of the book is going to be all four of these characters are standing on some kind of cliff. These parents think the cliff is all about their son at this cliff. And in a way, he is. They're all at this moment of this leap of faith moment. But everyone in that family in my book, which is, by the way, I don't know if I've said the name of it, it's called That's Not How It Happened. It's out November 4th from HarperCollins. Everyone in that family is standing on their own version of a cliff. And I tried to make that a comedy because you have to laugh when you're standing at these cliffs. We have these moments in life where we're at these crossroad moments, these leap of faith moments, and we as parents are there and our kids are there, and it's terrifying in one way or another. It's terrifying for every parent. It's terrifying for everyone. I hope this book will feel universal because it's just a family on their cliff, and how do they move forward? How do they all move forward and keep being a family and figure out how to tell their story as a family? That's why I keep shifting perspectives over and over in the book. It's a good book for short attention span readers because it's always switching perspectives. And I'm a short attention span writer, I guess, is the deeper truth. But I really, the reason the story is told that way is I really wanted to feel like it's not just this one person. Everyone's acting so worried about the family member with a disability, but everyone in the family has their own version of special needs. I put that in quotes a lot in the book because I don't love that term, but everyone is in some way in their own struggle. And the idea that it's just this one person because they have a disability that they're on some struggle. The whole book is a love story, essentially, right? It's all like we're all human. It's all about love. It's all about wanting a place in the world. And everyone in this family wants a place in the world and feels confused as to what their place in the world is. It's not just Emmett, who has Down syndrome, and the character in the book. Everyone is trying to find their place in the world in this book. And I think to me, that's the connective tissue. And if you can humanize that, if you can tell stories like that, I think my hope is it can get more people in this country, or at least people that read this book and have an open mind to it, kind of thinking about how we think about disability, how we portray it in our minds, how we talk about disability in this country, and how similar we all are, and how every human, with a disability or not, and sooner or later we'll all have some kind of disability if we live long enough, right? Why draw a line between anyone and anyone else? We're all just humans. I hope this book, the feeling you get at the end of this book, I hope is one of everyone in this family is the same. They all have the same needs and fears and wants and goals and dreams. And no one family member in this family is different than any other, really.
Mm.
You said it right there, is that I think it takes a while to come to it in life. But, there was a little PSA that the Down syndrome community made a couple years ago about needs and special needs, and a kid was just like, "I want this," and it was like a need that everybody wants, and then and they're like, "That's just a need," and they're like, "I'd like a dinosaur egg. That's a special need."
Yeah,
like, and I
that's great.
I feel like the truth is every human has needs.
It's life.
Yeah.
And every human, I think we can honestly say that I know when I'm in a room, if I want a cup of coffee, I think my need is like special enough that I want that like, I think that's the definition of special needs is I think that my need is special. Like I want it now, but I have the ability to vocalize that, and actively grab it. I don't know where that term came from.
I know.
I don't know where who at first thought, because it wasn't in a great way. It wasn't in it like I want a tiara, like that's, but like that, it wasn't like this great thing, and that's the truth, and that's really really what I strive for, is people to understand that we are all in this together, and
we like slapping labels on things. Us humans, we really like slapping labels on things.
Right?
You're this thing and I'm that thing. And it's never that simple. It is never that simple. And yeah, I hope that's the feeling at the end of my book, is like we've sat in we've walked in the shoes of all four members of this family, and in the end, they're all crazy. They're all needy. They're all lost. They're all hilarious. They're all beautiful. They're all just human. And I think it's in removing the labels a little bit, we'll all feel so much more connected. I heard a disability rights activist, I wish I could give credit properly, described, when people feel distant from disability and they're like, disability is this other thing over there. And sometimes I see inspiring videos on the internet for 30 seconds and I see a video about someone with a disability. Or far worse, sometimes I hear a bad joke using a bad word, a slur against people with disability. And it's this otherness. It's this marginalized otherness, the way we talk about disability. I heard this great phrase from some brilliant activist in the disability rights community. She said, everyone who thinks disability is separate, you are all temporarily able-bodied, right? Because if you live long enough, or even forget about living long enough, just something's going to happen. Something will change in how your mind works and how your body works. Something will change. And all of a sudden, you will see how all of these labels and all of these walls and putting somebody in a box and a pigeonhole and a category, it's really meaningless. We are all just in this same dance together. And it really, I think it makes people feel protected. It's such a scary idea. What if I become physically disabled? What if something happens to the way my mind works? Well, the answer to that should be, you'll still be included and we will still support you and we will still love you as a society. Maybe that's the thing we're all so afraid of and why we like pretending it only happens to other people, because we see how our society oftentimes doesn't know how to support people with disabilities, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's just the way in pop culture we talk about disability. Like, part of the mechanism, part of the plot of my book is that there's a movie being made about this family, and it's going to be a feel-good, inspiring movie about this family where the mom, the mom and the family has written her memoir. Part of her memoir is that she has created this wonderful place to work called Cafe Everyone. That's a cafe where all the employees have different disabilities. This is modeled on a really wonderful woman I know in the Berkshires in Massachusetts who did this, who created very much this place. And that, just that idea of like creating a place in the world for your son. But she writes a memoir about that journey, and Hollywood takes it and tries to turn it into this feel-good movie. And the irony, the big joke of the book is, will the making of this feel-good movie tear apart the actual family that it's being made about, because the Hollywood taking their story and trying to turn it into something inspiring turns out to be a bit of a nightmare. But that's the thing. We choose these ways we talk about disability. Sometimes it has to be really inspiring. Sometimes it's a really awful joke, or sometimes it's like, or even worse, maybe worst of all, we don't talk about it at all, right? It's just something we don't talk about. And certainly when my son was born, I felt so lonely. I felt like a lot of my friends and family did not know how to talk about it. And I suppose if it had been the reverse, I would have been the same, right? Because I grew up in a culture that didn't know how to talk about it particularly well either. And I was not given models for how to talk about it. There were not podcasts like yours to educate people about how we can talk about this shit. And I just think we have to make these stories human. We have to make them messy and complicated and funny. And then all of a sudden, I think comedy is a great way to unlock some of those, to break down some of those walls, right? And just say, we're all the same and we can all talk about this. You don't have to be so scared. It doesn't have to seem like something that can only happen to the other guy. It can happen to all of us.
I'm so glad you said that, Craig, because about maybe if this had happened to another family member of mine, I wouldn't know how to react, because I'm sometimes very critical on society and that they're not seeing my child like I see him. Of course. Yep. Of course. I would easily be on that end if I didn't have Liam in my life. And part of that is that I didn't know anyone, quote unquote, different than me in school. And that was where I think we've really failed ourselves is the non-inclusion, is we don't get to know each other. I've grown up in places that was I was in a bubble of people just like me, and then I had to come to the West Coast to go, wow, there's a whole other world here of people that I can learn from, and it's so much better when you know differences of people, and so
Well, we don't usually put ourselves in box. Other people do. And I try to remind people that. And so we can take down those walls. And then it's for a purpose, like when you're sorting your kitchen drawers. It's okay. Again, it's like you need to know that the knives are here, or the forks and the spoons. But it doesn't work really with humans. And
it doesn't.
I didn't have any prejudgments when I got the diagnosis. I was like, oh, I've never experienced this. I knew immediately it was wrong, what was being fed. And that's when I became an advocate was born, because like I saw my son man fight, and I saw who he was.
Yeah.
But my life has told me that people can't tell you who you are. That you choose who you are. You create that path, and you can change it anytime you want. And I gave my son my son has that same right. And for so long we had to prove, we had to do all of these things. And then I was like, we're not proving anymore. And you know what? If someone doesn't see, just like if someone met you and didn't see how great you were, it's like, it's a lot. That's there. It's unfortunate. And hopefully, but I can't, nobody has to prove. Like and that's a hard word to say, but you just don't. But telling the story is, I love, we're going to keep circling back. I just think everybody should read it because one, I know you need a break in your brain. And I know what it feels like. When I finished the book, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't done that for myself. And I know that you're doing an audiobook, which is even better because then if you don't have that moment, but what this does is it's that connective tissue because like you said, everybody is on a cliff. Everybody is on this journey. But out of the four, the only person who's being told who they're gonna be is your son.
That's exactly right. Was Liam your first? And then you have two kids and your daughter's older and Liam's younger.
She's 18. He's 15.
Which for us, like what you're experiencing with in reverse, because like any time
we're the opposite.
When we're fighting for Liam's education, a lot of times I'll say, hey, you know what? It took my daughter until the 11th grade to really understand how to write a paragraph. So we're not going to halt his education.
Right. We're all atypical learners. Everyone in the world is an atypical learner in some way. And we're told, oh, your kid's an atypical learner. You're like, so am I, man. Like
he was just doing photosynthesis, right, in freshman year of high school. That's what he's doing now. And I was like, wait, didn't he do that in like fifth grade and second grade? It's like, well, obviously not everyone is getting it in third grade when you learn it the first time.
Exactly.
It's taught in high school for a reason. My
God, I mean, I have so many things that like, I am so bad with fine motor skills that sometimes my wife is like, don't you think part of Elliott's bad fine motor skills might just be you? Yeah. And that's the other maddening thing where you're like, does my kid just get to be my kid sometimes?
Right.
Can my kid not be this list of like, these are the traits exhibited by this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's also my kid. You know what I mean? And maybe he has strengths that come from me or my wife. Maybe he has challenges that come from me and my wife. It's not all the diagnosis. But I'm also, he's like me because I am so bad at fine motor skills like arts and crafts. Like in kindergarten, I had this really mean teacher who called me the paste machine. I was 5 years old. She gave me she would like literally call me names because I used too much paste. And my mother had to go into the school when I was 5. And this is like my first social experience in the world that I'm being like Don Rickles heckled by the freaking teacher. It's the paste machine over here. And my mom had to go in like, can you stop calling my son names? This is like my early educational experience. And she literally marked me down for needing like extra remedial help in first grade and put me into this first grade class with extra supports because my fine motor skills, she felt, were so bad. And here's the funny thing. When I found music, I taught myself drums. I taught myself guitar. You put me into a preferred activity that I love, something I love like music, and my son's the exact same. All of a sudden I can finger pick a guitar. I still suck at paste. I'll be honest. I never got the paste. I never nailed paste. But in truth, I think kindergarten really oversold how much we would need paste for our lives. That seems, maybe there was too much emphasis put on the paste. But it's just like, so I got some label on me in kindergarten by this teacher calling me names. And you just go like, I don't know. We're all atypical, man. We are all in it. Well, I want to say, I love the name of of your guys' podcast, If We Knew Then. If We Knew Then, it's very How I Met Your Mother to me. It could, this idea of like retrospective, How I Met Your Mother was a show told from the future about the now. Do you know what I mean? I think so often, if I could get in a time machine and just go back and find me and my wife in that bad newsroom, and I can say, hey, listen, I'm from when Elliott's 18. Here's a video of him playing along to Pearl Jam perfectly. Here's a video of him playing tennis. Just know this can happen too. It's going to be really hard, and you'll also but you're going to be wonderfully surprised. And the version of yourself that you're going to become that you can't see yet, and the parent you're going to be, like you were saying, Lori, I'm such a more involved parent. and that carried over to my daughter. Sometimes people are like, after How I Met Your Mother, what's your next big TV show? I'm like, I just want to have another kid, man. I want to have another kid and be with them. That's why the writing a book is a great job for also being a parent, because you can kind of do it around the kid's life and needs. And I say needs applying to both of my children there. Um, but boy, if we knew then, I love the name of the show because, oh boy, if we could just go talk to our past selves, and let them know there's a future you who not only survived this, but maybe became a better person because of this in a way you can't see while you're sitting in the frickin' bad newsroom. You don't get it then. But I wish you could.
Yeah, that's well.
Gosh,
Thank
yep.
you. That makes me feel so good. That's exactly why we created it. We created it. What Liam was. We had that in 2019, right before COVID, and it was
He was
in
9.
the heart of our fight for his education, because we wanted people to like understand and to unwind some of the stories that were kind of binding us. And so no other parent would, because in our bad newsroom, my geneticist said to my face, there's a test you could have taken. And I was
Right.
just like, tell me
Yeah.
what I turned into like, what does that mean? You
Yeah,
tell me what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Spell it out. Say what you're really
Well,
saying.
my son's fighting for his life. Like, it was just like,
Yeah. It's astonishing what people say. It's astonishing what people say. Are in that same bad newsroom conversation, it was not so subtly indicated that some families put kids like this up for adoption.
kids like this. Yeah, that,
Kids like this.
yeah.
And we go, wait, why are you talking about adoption? You handed us a Google printout. Like, stop it. Learn, like, there needs to be a rigorous training course in how to talk to parents in that moment, for doctors, I think, right? And by the way, there's some wonderful doctors. I already name checked the doctor who became like our guiding light, who's the expert in Jacobsen syndrome. And How I Met Your Mother, we would do fundraising parties to raise on the set of How I Met Your Mother to raise money for this guy. So you get so many brilliant doctors and so many brilliant teachers and therapists. You meet all these brilliant people who will lift you up, and also you meet people who should really know better how to talk to families in these horrible moments, in these moments where you just need support. But I will say, I really, if I could go back, if we knew then, and another thing I'd say to past me is be more open about it right away. I remember I was picking and choosing who I was kind of letting in. I mean, when Elliott was really first born, and because I had to go back to run How I Met Your Mother in year 3, and I didn't want people to think, oh, is Craig going to not be funny anymore? Is Craig going to not be able to do this high pressure job of running this TV show? I had a writing partner, Carter Bays, who's wonderful and was so there for me in that moment. We were co-running the show together. But boy, I was like really protective of who knew what and how much was I going to tell people about what Jacobsen syndrome might mean. And I was really kind of like a little bit circled the wagons a little bit more than I should have. And when you look at the timeline, like for example, again, 18 years later, like my audiobook of this book, That's Not How It Happened. The audiobook is great because two of the stars of How I Met Your Mother are two of the voices, the mom and dad, Josh Radnor and Kobe Smulders. Ted and Robin from How I Met Your Mother are the voices of the parents in this. And we cast this wonderful young adult actor, Kevin Iannucci, from the movie Champions with Woody Harrelson. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he's the sort of featured. He's Caitlin Olsen's brother, and like he's great in that movie, and he reads the part of Emmett in this book. But my point about the How I Met Your Mother actors, I promise there's a point here, is they were so there for me, the How I Met Your Mother community, when I finally let them all in. And the studio and the network, people were supportive. They were like, no one was like, we're worried Craig can't do this job anymore. Whatever the fears were in my head of like, if I let people know quite how challenging everything was, they would look at me and pity me or fear that I wasn't going to do a good job. And I wish I could tell past self, if we knew then, just let everyone in right away. Be out there. It's part of your job now in the world is to let people know what life you're living and to kind of model for them what life you're living and who your son is and be out there. And parenthood's really hard. And now you have this extra job of also trying to teach people who your son is, who you're going to be as a parent, what the challenges are. And I think just being an open book right away is definitely the way to go. And I wasn't. And that would be another thing. If I knew then, I would change. But it's all a journey, and you only find it by by walking that path. And here we are, Elliott's 18. We are kind of coming up on that cliff. That's why I wrote a comedy about the cliff, because I think we write about, the best writing to me is you write about what keeps you up at night, but also what you wake up for in the morning. And Elliott's 18, and he is now away from us at a school, a post-high school program. It's a high school and post-high school program called the Riverview School in Cape Cod, where Elliott had an amazing summer program there this summer, and they said he can do this. Take the leap and join our school for what is now his senior year of high school, because that could be his way into showing you and showing himself that he can be a little bit independent and live away from you and be in this wonderful community we have. It's really like a college-like campus. And he is there doing that right now. Again, if I had known that he could do that, am I scared all the time? We're a month and a half in, he gets a sniffle, he gets a cough. My wife and I are up at night worrying, is this going to be bad? And we're too far away from him. We live in New York. But he is out there making friends in a way that he kind of never did. He is out there having adventures. He plays in 2 or 3 different music situations there on keyboard and on drums. And he's playing tennis and he's going on hikes. And he's just doing all of these things out in the world. And it just makes the cliff less scary when you start to realize it's not a drop into a dark chasm. There's actually, you can take flight too. And it's really cool. It's really cool to see him doing that. But what a journey getting there.
Well, I think that everybody will realize in their life that you have a cliff every day, every week.
Everybody on earth.
Everybody. And it's funny when you talk about a cliff. I lived in the Caribbean for a few years, and cliffs were amazing because when you jumped off them, it was like into the ocean, and it was beautiful, and how it felt, and just like it was scary, but it was amazing.
You have to let go.
You have to let go, and like really only like people would be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that!" If you jumped off and it's like, but that's another gift of this life. Is like, yeah, we see the cliff, but it's not a cliff to us. It's like
yeah, and people will catch you too if you let them. Sometimes people let you fall and they disappoint you, right? And that can be family, that can be friends, that can be society, that can be, looking at what's happening in politics. Sometimes people will let you fall, but really, you will be so caught and held and supported in ways that you'd never imagined by the community you find, by the people in your life who really, really raised their game and are there for you. And again, I bring up like Josh and Kobe doing the audiobook of this book because they know Elliott. They have known Elliott. They were there when Elliott was born. They were there for me. They helped. They came to the fundraisers. They emceed the fundraisers we did to raise money for the doctor who specializes in Jacobsen Syndrome and the research. And if you let people in, and it took me about a few years to do that, they will show up for you. And they still are. And so I'm let people show up for you is my advice. Take the leap and realize there is a warm ocean there. It's not a bottomless pit. And I love what you said about cliffs there, Lori. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and you let people in, and it's not. We don't have to be any more scared than any other parent. And there are parents that are private, and parents can be private if that's who you are. But don't let it be something that is coming from a feeling of like. And
fear.
and to
fear.
And
fear.
If those people don't show up, then it's good to know that. And
right. Well, it's a test.
And that's honestly has nothing to do with you. It's them. And then you just be, and they have the opportunity to evolve as well.
And people come back around too. People can come back around. You think, oh, that one's done. I can't count on that person. And then 3 years later, they're your dear close friend again. Because they learned how, and maybe you learned how. I put it on myself too. I'm like, I have to put out the energy too that says you are welcome here. You can stumble. You can not know how to talk about this, and I can try to teach you. I also don't always know how to talk about this either. I certainly didn't know how to talk about this before my son was born. I am certainly guilty of like saying and doing things that were probably un-PC, or at least just tone deaf, like not understanding. I didn't know anything about this world until I was in it. And so I have to remind myself of that. When somebody does or says something I don't like, I try to go, no, don't be holier than thou. Just educate them. Just say, hey. And when you talk to people on a human level and you say, hey, that word that word diminishes people like my son, or whatever it is. That if you support that policy or that politician, well, look what they're proposing and how it would really hurt people like my son. And if you can explain that and it becomes human, and I think comedy can really help do that, I think it becomes real to people. And that's our job. And that's our job as parents. And it's an extra job. It's a hard job on top of a hard job. But you guys are doing it by putting this podcast out there. And again, like watching how much Jenna and Angela just talking about how much they loved you guys and they loved working with you guys. That's again an example of you let them in. They understood when they read my book. They said, Jenna immediately said, you have to meet these guys. You have to meet Laurie and Stephen. And that told me that that you let her in and she became your friend. And that's it, right? That's it. You let people in and then they show up for you. And then that's how I met Laurie and Stephen, to quote my own show, because Jenna Fischer said, you got to meet these guys.
Your book talks about everything. It talks about being a mom. I love that you talk about the mom and she's the one who did the IEPs. She's the one who did the hard appointments. You talk about relationships. You talk about the sacredness of that story. You talk about family and you talk about the fears. You talk about siblings. You talk about the relationship and statistics and the work and just connectiveness and the moments and your son and his dreams and hopes and his voice I wanted to add, his voice is so solid and so just honest and truthful. I just wanted, is that your son?
That's nice to hear. Thank you. There's a lot of my son in there, but there's also a lot of amazing people I've met along the way and kind of like a sponge kind of soaked up who they were. Like my son has been in this from kindergarten to 18. He's been in this amazing school founded by amazing Down syndrome parents, and even the act of creating that school was a part of the inspiration for Paige, the mom in this book. In addition to the wonderful woman in the Berkshires who created Extra Specialties, I'm so inspired by these people that I've met that have said, okay, there's not a just right place for my kid in the world. I'll make one. I will create a space like that. I just think that's so heroic. And so so many of the amazing people I've met over these 18 years, and very much my wife included. She became the medical expert in Jacobsen Syndrome. She would know more than the doctors. She was so amazing at the IEPs. I would just get angry and start arguing people at the IEPs. They're such unpleasant experiences. And she was like the cool, you're nodding, Stephen. My wife was like the cool cucumber, like keeping it steady through all that. So there's a lot of my wife in Paige, and there's a lot of Elliott and Emmett. I made it an E name. Elliott and Emmett both love Pearl Jam. They're both drummers. They're both super charismatic, positive, awesome dudes. And so there's a bunch of us in there, but there's also a lot of fiction. And I am writing about Down syndrome. I'm not the parent of someone who actually has Down syndrome. So hearing from you that you felt that the voice felt solid and right. I mean, I'm definitely lucky to have met a lot of amazing kids and now young adults with Down syndrome on this journey. I mean, I never would have met all of these amazing humans if I had not become Elliott's dad. I would have just not known that these heroes and these just wonderfully beautiful human souls who are also real humans with flaws and absurdity and ridiculousness like everybody else, the richness of human experience I would not have had access to if I had not had Elliott. And I never would have known. I never would have known what I was missing. So
it's something I actually aspire to, is to be more like my son.
Yeah, no, I think about that all the time. To be that in the moment, to be that musical, to be that, here's who I am, here's what I'm feeling right now, and not a mean bone in his body, and just pure kindness and openness, and everybody loves him. And I always say Elliott has been my greatest teacher, and I'll never have a better one. He's definitely way better than that kindergarten teacher who called me the pace machine, for example.
The Don Rickles guy.
All right, you guys. I mean, I don't even want to run because I love talking to you guys, but I have to. But thank you for having me on. Thank you for putting a little spotlight on this book. It really means a lot to me.
We'll put a link in there for your book. It comes out on the 4th. And thank you for putting the story out there. And it was so great to meet you, Craig.
Great to meet you.
Just a total pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Please follow us on Twitter at If We Knew Then Pod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at If We Knew Then Pod, or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.